Hello, online crew. Today we're talking about follow-up. Follow-up with leads, follow-up with people that comment, follow-up with anybody that you need to follow up with. But how do we do that in a way that is not annoying? It doesn't seem desperate, or you don't get that feeling of, oh, I wonder if I'm bothering this person. So there's lots of questions that come up when we think of follow-up. There's things like, do I message them again? How long do I wait before I message them again? What do I say? How do I sort of approach this without looking desperate or too pushy or annoying them, or what are they going to think of me? I don't want to be that kind of person. Can you relate to any of those things when it comes to follow-up? Like, it's very easy for us to get in our own heads regarding follow-up. And when we do that, it can often, cause us to pause and not do anything at all, which obviously is not going to help build your business. So there are strategies around how to follow up the right way. So I'm going to go through 5. I wrote these all out for you because I just thought, I know these tips are going to help you guys. So I've written them all out, and I'm just going to share each one of those with you. So I really hope that this does help you with your follow-up processes. Okay. The one thing that you don't want to do is think that follow-up is annoying. Follow-up isn't annoying when it's done the right way. So you absolutely should be following up. You should be following up often. There is definitely a reality out there of people being busy. People often have got a lot going on. So it's not necessarily that somebody's avoiding you or ignoring you, or, that they're saying no. It's a matter of they've got life going on. So yes, there may have been a reason why they raised their hand, but life got in the way. The kids asked them for something, they got distracted, they had a phone call, or you never know what's going on in somebody's life, but everybody has got a level of busyness in their life. And generally when they come across on something on social media that caught their attention, it's often not because they were actually seeking it out and looking for it. It was because it got put in front of them. So you might have put out a piece of content that got somebody curious, and they raised their hand and they asked for some information. But then they go back to their normal life and they keep on scrolling, or the kids, interrupt them with something, or, something's going on that interrupts them, and they're already gone. So it's not a matter of that they're not interested anymore per se. It could be just life got in the way, and it's not really their priority because it wasn't something they were necessarily searching for. You put it in front of them and it looked interesting, and they're curious, and curious enough for them to raise their hand, but then life got in the way. So, it's not their priority necessarily, but it doesn't mean they're not interested. So you need to follow up. But the way that you follow up will make or break how that goes. So if you follow up with the wrong wording, the wrong intention, the wrong strategy, it could come across as you being annoying or pestering, and they're just like, oh, I just need to get rid of this person. But if you follow up in the right way with the right strategies, with the right wording, then it can have a completely different outcome because they know you're coming from the right place and you just want to help them. So the first thing you kind of want to think about is the mindset that you go into with follow-up. It's just, how can I help this person? Not what can I get out of this person, or I want to get a sale out of this person, or I want them to become a customer, or I want them to become, a team member, whatever you've attracted the lead for. It's not what you can get out of them, because that'll come across in your follow-up. Okay, and it's one of the strategies, which I'll get to in a second. So thank you for saying hello, Campbell and Debbie. Great to see you guys here. Anybody that's live, just say hello. We've got here on Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, we've got my free group as well. I can't actually see any of the comments from my group, so if anyone's saying hello, I just can't see that on the screen at the moment, but I'll go back and have a look. Okay, so I'll get into the 5 strategies I just want to share with you, if you are in my coaching community, we just finished live Q&A Zoom call number 1, and I've got live Q&A Zoom call number 2 tonight in my time zone. Those calls are gold if you're a coaching community member, because that's your opportunity to get on Zoom with me and ask me any questions about your business, what you're struggling and what you need help with, and I can give you some advice. I also really openly share a lot of things about my business and what works for me. And because I do those calls at the end of the month, I'm usually sharing what's worked for me or what hasn't worked for me in that month that's just gone, which is exactly what I've done today. So those calls are gold. So don't watch the replay of the one I just did if you missed it, or if it works with your time zone, catch the one that I'm doing tonight, okay? Which will be morning for UK and Europe people. Okay, so number 1 strategy, well, I'm going to go through 5 of them, so you might want to note these down. Listening on the bus. Good to see, Debbie. Good use of your time. And thank you for sharing. So number 1, common language to use with follow-up is, I'm just following up to see if you've looked at that information. Don't use that wording, okay? It's kind of indicating that you're following them up because you want to get to the sale, okay? We want more of an emphasis on them as a person, and more of an open-ended question, as well. So start it with something like, rather than starting with, hey, just checking back in with you, or hey, I'm just following up with you, start with something like, hey, Debbie, I was just thinking about you because of what we were talking about the other day, blah, 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 blah. Like, let them know that you're thinking about them, or, why, something just more personal about them. Or, hey, Debbie, you crossed my mind this morning. I was thinking about our conversation the other day, etc. Did you have a chance to look at the information that I sent you? What were your thoughts? Do you think this could help you? So leave open-ended questions. Sometimes when you just go in with, hey, I'm just checking back in with you. Did you get a chance to look at the information? Or, what were your thoughts? Or, did you look at the info? It can be just about the info, which is not what we want the person to feel from us. We want the person to feel that we really want to help them with whatever their problem was that they reached out in the first place. So in your follow-up, you want to be mindful of addressing the original problem. So if you actually know what that is, you can actually go back in with, hey, Debbie, I was just wondering, just checking, whether you were still keen to, solve the problem that you were talking about. So readdress the problem. How you'll get people's attention again is by readdressing the problem that you talked about in the first place. It's not about the information that you sent them. Do you see the difference, the key difference with that? So just saying, hey, just following up with you, or just checking back in on the information I sent you. It's all about the information, whereas we want it to make about the problem that we're solving. Okay, so that's number 1. It's the language that you're using. So again, that's something like, hey, I was just thinking about you, blah, blah, blah. So lead with the person and the problem, not, hey, just checking in whether you looked at the information. So don't lead with the check-in for the information. Lead with the person and the problem. Okay, so make it all about them. So, follow up with regarding the problem, not the product or the business. Number 2. You could ask a question that's really easy for somebody to answer. So from what you saw with the information I sent you, would you think this is something that could help you? Is this something that you think it could benefit you? So you're already kind of making an assumption that they've looked at the information, but you're not just asking them, what did you think? You're asking, do you think this could help you? Or do you think this could benefit you with what we discussed about? So you keep revisiting the problem, but you're asking them, do you think this could help you? Do you think this could benefit from, you could benefit from this? So we're looking for the ingredients that they think that it could help them. Okay. You're going to get a far better response to that than just say, just checking in on the information I sent you. So ask a question that's really easy to answer, but it's leading to what they're actually thinking about the information, not about the solution and the benefit, not just about the fact that they've looked at the information. Did you see the distinction there? It's not just we want them to look at the information. It's, do you think, do you think this could help you? Do you think you could, do you think you could benefit from this? We're trying to get agreements with what we've shared with them, that they see it, that it's a fit for their problem. Okay. If it was business, could you see yourself doing something like this? So you're asking more of an open-ended question. Okay. You could also even go as far as, could you see yourself doing something like this? Or is this just, probably not for you? You can also, don't be afraid to give somebody permission to say no as well. So then you might actually open up an objection, and they feel freer to share with you, because often when we're dealing with follow-up and objections, we don't get to the real reason. So when we give them an out to say, do you see yourselves doing this business, or, is this probably not for you? Then you can get to the real objection that then you can answer, because most people won't tell you what they're thinking unless you ask. So ask, do you think this could benefit, you could benefit from this? Do you think this could be helpful for you with what we discussed about, and revisit the problem again? And then you could put an or in there. And when you give them an or, they're more likely to tell you what they're actually thinking, which then you can get to the real problem, and you've got half a chance to turn it around. So if you listened to my video this time last week, I think it was, we talked a lot about, dealing with objections. So once you know what the real objection is, then you've got half a chance to actually, overcome that objection, because they're thinking it, whether they say it or not, they're probably thinking of the concerns. Like, you want to draw out those concerns. Okay. So, that's the second one. Asking a question that's easy to answer, but open-ended again. Number 3, Campbell, people don't react well to pressure. Absolutely. Always keep your door open and available. And we'll get to that as well. That is a very good point. Okay. Number 3, follow up with value, just not, are you ready yet? Now, that has its place. Like, don't be afraid, if you've had a good conversation with somebody, to be really forward thinking in saying, so are you ready to get started yet? So you can absolutely use that. But if you've followed up with, a few times, and you're getting very short answers, or you're not getting much of a response, then I would highly encourage you to follow up with value, rather than just, have you looked at the information again? You don't want to say in your follow-up, you don't want to say the same thing over and over again. So a good way to follow up with people is go back in with value. Now, what I mean by that is, maybe you're talking about a particular problem with somebody. You followed them up a couple of times. Either they're not responding, or they're giving you one-word answers, or you're not really getting a decision out of them. So think about the problem that you were talking about with that person. What's another resource or piece of information that you could put in front of them that strengthens your product or your business with their problem? For example, you might have a testimonial from somebody else, or a video, or some kind of PDF or piece of information that addresses what you've been talking about. So instead of following up with somebody and saying again, have you had a look at that information yet? You could say, hey, I just thought of you. Check out this testimonial. This person is struggling with something very similar to what you were sharing with me the other day, or last week, or whatever. And I thought you'd be interested in looking at this. So you put back in front of them something that's valuable, that readdresses the problem that they're experiencing, with another piece of, like, social proof, if you like. Or it could be a video. So it might be, maybe you've got a video on a particular product, or somebody's giving a testimonial via video, like extra information. Put extra value in front of them, rather than just following up with, have you looked at the info? Does that make sense to you? So follow up with something that will capture their attention and strengthen the need for your product or business. So that's another really good strategy, especially if you've already followed up 1 or 2 times and you're still not getting much of a response. Don't follow up a third time with saying exactly the same thing, because you're going to get exactly the same result. Change your strategy a little bit and go back in with something of value. And like most of you would have team groups or company Facebook groups that have got testimonials in them. So deliberately go to those groups and put in the search function of that Facebook group the issue that you were talking to that person about, and go and deliberately find some testimonials from somebody that's struggling with the thing that you're talking to that person about, and like go and search for that information, and then you could put that back in front of them. So you could say something like, hey, Rachel, I was just thinking of you because I saw this testimonial pop up in a Facebook group and it reminded me of you. I thought you'd be, I thought you'd be keen to have a look at this because this is very similar to what you've been experiencing. And you just go back in with a follow-up with value instead of, have you looked at the information yet? Again. So that's another really good strategy to get back in the door with people, is to revisit the problem, but via another tool or another resource or a testimonial or a video or something like that. Okay. So you don't want to keep knocking on their door with the same wording, with the same follow-up, because they will probably feel like you're annoying them. Okay. We want to revisit the problem all again. And can you see the common theme here? We're always following up with the problem in mind, not the product or the business in mind. That's what you're leading with in your follow-up. Okay. Number 4, definitely have a follow-up system. So nobody is falling through the cracks. You can tell how many messages you've sent somebody and what you've kind of said and when you should follow up next. Because one of the things with follow-up is you might be leaving people alone for too long and they've already forgotten about you. So we do want to follow up. We do want to follow up in a timely manner because people move on really, really quickly. Life gets in the way. You know that? Like, how fast does life move for you? How quickly are you distracted in any one day? Like, you go to do something on your phone, you get distracted, and like half an hour later, you're like, what did I come here to do? Or on your computer. Now, this is the world that we live in. Okay. So people are distracted all the time and they forget, and you will probably forget leads that you've got or people that you should follow up with. So you've got to have some kind of system. One, because you'll have better results when you're quicker with your follow-up than when you leave people, for way too long, and then you come back in like a month later. Oh, hey, do you remember that discussion we had, whatever? They're like, basically, who are you? So have a really good follow-up system. So I would say, it depends on the person that you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, what their needs are, etc. But you shouldn't really leave anybody longer than 24 hours for a follow-up, like an initial follow-up, if you've sent them some information or a link or something like that. Okay. So if you leave it for a week and then follow up, I guarantee you've already lost them. So when you've got a follow-up system, you can keep in a timely manner. But remember all the strategies that we've already talked about in how you're following up. It's not just, just checking back in with you if you looked at the info. It's the wording, it's revisiting the problem, it's caring, it's concern. So as I said at the very beginning, follow-up is not a problem if you do it the right way. And you always have got in the front of your mind how you can help the person, not what you can get out of the person. Okay. It also helps you realize how many leads that you might actually have that you've forgotten about. Like, how many of you have, like, honestly, you've not got a really good system and you've probably had leads and you've forgotten about them and you've let them go too long, and then you've thought, oh, it's too long, I can't follow up with them now. Or you're just letting people slip through the cracks. So when you've got a really good follow-up system, you just keep moving forward because you keep looking at your follow-up system, and it's got, okay, I better catch up with that person and that person and that person. And it just keeps your business ticking along. So it becomes more of a many people rather than one person. When people get, a little bit desperate with follow-up is when you're concentrating on the one person. I really want them to buy. I sent them a link and they haven't signed up yet. Like, you obsess over the one person, and your follow-up can come across like a little bit pushy and a little bit desperate. When you've got a follow-up system and you're tracking people and you're watching your stories and who's looking at you and who's becoming a lead and who's commenting and whatever, and you've got a lot of sort of names down, and you put that in your follow-up. Yeah, I better send them a message and I'll follow up with them and I'll ask them a question. When you've got a lot of movement in your business, you won't get obsessive about any one person, and your follow-up becomes more genuine because you're not desperate. Follow-up when it becomes a little bit desperate is when you're focusing on one person too much. So track your leads, have a good system, send this person a message, ask that person a question. Just keep moving your business forward by looking at the people that are looking at you and putting down their names and following up with people in various ways that are appropriate. Okay. So when you've always got that movement happening in your business, you won't focus or become desperate on that one person that you sent a link to that just haven't bought yet. Okay. So having a really good follow-up system will actually help you be a better person in your follow-up when you follow the other strategies that I've already shared with you as well. The last one is know when to close the loop with the follow-up. Don't keep talking to the same person or sending them message after message after message after message without closing the loop somewhere along the line. So closing the loop, I mean, just saying to somebody, if you've sent them 3 or 4 messages and there's been absolutely no response at all, then I'd be going back in with, what do you call it? A breakup message. So have a script for a breakup message, and that might be something like, hey, Mary, I know you must be probably really busy. So I'm not going to fill your inbox up anymore. The last thing I want to do is annoy you about this, even if they raised their hand in the first place. That's the only reason that you're following them up. So I'll just leave it in your hands for now. Just know if anything changes for you, my door is always open. I'm happy to answer any questions. So, just feel to reach out at any time, but I won't follow you up anymore type thing. So that kind of message. So it's a very polite breakup message. Some people will come back with, oh my gosh, I'm just so busy. I haven't had the time to look at this, because people feel bad when they don't do something that they said they'd do. So that might be they've asked for a link and not done anything with it. They've asked for information and not looked at it. So people's natural human reaction is they feel a little bit guilty, so they don't say anything at all. So people that are really, they're mindful of that, they might actually comment and say, sorry, I just haven't had time to look at any of this. But majority of people, they actually feel guilty. So they just don't respond at all. And they feel like it's just another thing in their life that they need to look at that they just don't have time for, because life is already busy enough. It still doesn't mean they're not interested. If you've got a lead that you're following up, they raise their hand in some respect. So there's some interest there. What you've got to be careful with follow-up is not to burn the interest by the pressure that somebody might feel from you. But if you come back in with care and concern, that they don't feel that pressure, they know that you're coming from the right place. And if you address that, look, the last thing I want to do is bug you about this, but I've sent you a few messages before. Look, just honestly let me know, is this still something that you're keen to and you're just really busy at the moment? Or is this just not something that you're open to looking at anymore? So just ask the question and close the loop. Give people a permission to close that loop, because that's much better for you than having a whole lot of leads that they've actually said no in their own mind, but they haven't let you know. So give them permission to say no. That's really helpful. But also keep that door open always. A no now isn't a no forever. A no now is probably, I don't have time to look at this right now. My life is busy. It's just another thing on my to-do list. I don't have time for this. That could be all it is. So just go back in with, I appreciate you're probably really busy at that moment. Maybe you haven't had time to look at this. So I won't message you anymore like right now, but please know my door is always open. I'm here to help. So if anything changes for you in the future or you want to revisit this, more than happy to help you. Just reach out at any time. Always leave the door open and don't stop communicating with people, even if somebody says no to you. Okay, if somebody says, no, it's just not the right time now. Ask permission to just keep in contact with them. Say, oh, I totally appreciate that. Certainly don't want to put another thing on your plate when you're dealing with so much. Would it be okay if I checked in with you in about a month's time? And then you put it in your follow-up system. Or if somebody says it's too expensive, like I talked about last week, you say, no problems at all. I totally respect that. If the company releases a special anytime soon, would you like me to let you know? Always leave the door open. And don't stop loving on people or communicating with people or commenting on people's posts because they said no to you at a particular point in time. A no in a particular point in time doesn't mean a no forever if you're a nice person. But if you close the door and you stop communicating with people because they've got life going on and they can't deal with whatever you want from them right now, then they know the only reason why you were talking to them is because you wanted a sale. Don't be that person. So always keep communicating in some way. Ask permission to follow up in the future. If you leave like a closing the loop type of message, just always leave that door open and always be a good person. Never make it always about the sale. We are in a relationship business and we are here to help people, either with the products that you sell, the services that you offer, or the business that you are in. So if you only communicate and follow up to make a sale, people feel that. So this, to my core, is in alignment with my motto: always be a human before a marketer, especially in your follow-up. So take all those strategies that I mentioned with you, the 5 strategies, and implement them, like the not only the tracking side of it, but the words that you use, the way that you approach it, the asking of the questions, making it simple for somebody to answer something. Don't ask them 4 questions in one follow-up because their brain goes too much. Ask one simple question and get them to re-engage with you if they've gone quiet. So instead of asking whether they've looked at the information, you ask them a question about themselves, or how they are or whatever. Get them to re-engage. Okay, I could talk to you about this and many more strategies, but I just wanted to give you those 5 to start with. If you really take those seriously and take them on board, it'd be really helpful for you with, the follow-up, so you don't come across as that annoying or desperate person. Okay, I'll say it again. Follow-up is not bad when you do it properly. People appreciate follow-up because they're busy. They need reminding that the words that you say and how you come across, and whenever the opportunity arises, I would highly recommend you do follow-up with a voice message, depending on what platform you are, than always a written message, because all somebody sees when they go back is like a written message from you, a written message from you, a written message from you. That's all overwhelming. I'm not dealing with that person. They just keep pressuring me with information. And whether I've looked at something, which I haven't. So when you do voice message, you can come across your tone, so it doesn't come across pushy in any way. People can interpret your wording in a way that you don't intend. But when you voice message and you say, hi, hey, Helen, and then whatever it is that you want to say regarding your follow-up. I was just thinking about you because I saw this testimonial in a Facebook group and it really spoke to me because it's exactly what we were talking about the other day. I thought you might like to see it. Here's the link. Or you're not in that Facebook group, so I thought I'd screenshot it for you. Have a read of this. So you let the person know you're thinking about them, but what you're doing is putting something in front of them that's strengthening the case for your product or your business. Okay? Does this all make sense? I hope it does. And I hope you sort of write down those 5 strategies and put them into practice, because you'll only ever get good at follow-up when you practice it more and more. Don't expect to be good at follow-up, just because you've listened to this video. You've got to practice these things, practice your wording, see what gets a better result so you can do more of the things that work and less of the things that don't. But you're only going to get good at follow-up when you practice these kind of strategies. Okay, so I hope that's helpful for you. And this is my last live video of the week. So make sure you catch the replay if you didn't of my video from 2 days ago. What was that about? I can't even remember, but it was good. And I hope this one is helpful. And I will see you next week for more tips, more training to help your life be easier with building a business on social media. And just remember, always be a human before a marketer.